Think lead core line's obsolete? Well, think again. Look at those big, beautiful rainbows. I got these fish while trolling 15 to 20 feet deep, and I didn't use a downrigger. If you don't want the expense or hassle of using a downrigger, pick up one of my yellow lead core rods in the Fish Hunt Shoot Productions store and get ready to yell, "Fish on." Just like that, baby. Fish on right there, baby. Woohoo! Yeah. Oh, he's airborne right away. Wow, he's running. He's tearing off line. Wow. He's not happy. Can't see as I blame him. Got a face full of treble hook. That number 6 treble is working. That fly was about 2 feet deep. And he hit it a couple times. Miss, miss, and then hook up. What a fighter. You know, the water's cold. They got a lot of stamina when the conditions are like this, and they're just a lot of fun. I see them back there swimming on the surface. I can keep him down. I don't want to lose him. Back in the line. Nice fish. Got himself wrapped up good. The hook's under his chin. Big old fish. Ugh. But he just came up and rolled in that line. I've seen a lot of salmon do that, but not trout. Look at that big old Lake Davis holdover. What an awesome fish. He lassoed himself. He had that line wrapped around himself. I don't know how many times he had it wrapped around his head. He wasn't going anywhere, but man, it took me 10 minutes to get everything straightened out. Look at those big, beautiful rainbows. That's what trolling flies can do. You think trolling flies don't work? Well, think again. You need to grab a set of my trolling flies, get out on the water, and get ready to go big. Yes! Howdy folks, Cal Kellogg here. Well, I am out on my front porch filming today. I filmed out here for the first time over the weekend when I was working on a nightcrawler enclosure project, and I filmed out here that day because it was pretty rainy and there was a lot of wind. Well, today I have a whole group of young, strong guys working just beyond my back fence doing fire protection work. They got a bulldozer back there, a little mini bulldozer. They're knocking down the manzanita. They're running chainsaws. They got some big old burn piles going, and great news, great news here in the foothills. When it dries out, late summer, early fall, we are always terrified of forest fires. And those guys are out there putting in some really hard work right now just to make the neighborhood a little bit safer. So big thumbs up to my neighbors, and just love to see that. I've done my share of that here on my own property, and I can tell you it is backbreaking work. So, hats off to them. Let's talk about trout fishing. In the beginning of this video, you saw me catch a very nice Lake Davis holdover on a trolling fly, or more specifically, a tube fly. And while I was fighting that fish, I referenced a few times that I had hooked the fish on a treble hook, a number 6 treble hook. So what I really wanted to talk about today was the difference between singles and trebles when it comes to trolling and hooking trout. But I wanted to start off, I'll just show you what a tube fly is all about if you're unfamiliar. Here's a Tui chub pattern tube fly, very similar to the fly I caught that fish on at Lake Davis. I was using an orange fly, but the configuration is the same. Now what a tube fly means is that the fly is actually tied on a plastic tube. Let me show you inside here. There is the plastic tube. You pass your line through that tube and then you attach your own hook. In this case, I've got the leader material coming down. I have a bead on the line to create a little space, and then I have a bobber stop right there, and I have a number 6 single mosquito style hook. Now that is my standard rigging for a tube fly, and usually the trout, they'll come up, they'll just engulf that, and they're hooked very well. But if you saw that trout hitting At Davis, they were very tentative that day. They were coming in, they were nipping at the fly, they were hitting the fly, and I was having a ton of missed hookups on that single hook. So what I opted to do in that situation is I switched out the single for a number 6 treble, which ultimately killed a little bit of the action in the fly, but my hookup ratio went up quite a bit. I was still getting some short strikes and some misses, but I started hooking more fish than I had been with the single. So let's kind of explore 2 different styles of hooks. And I've got here is a needlefish spoon, very familiar to most folks. Let me get a good grip on it there. It's a large needlefish, shad pattern, and it has a large J hook on it. Now, just to contrast that, here's one of my speed spoons. It is a copper pattern speed spoon, and it has a number 4 red treble hook on the back. Now, people often ask me, why do you rig your lures with trebles? Why don't you rig them with singles? And this is my thinking. I absolutely think that, broad perspective, when you get a large single hook or even a medium-sized single hook embedded in the jaw of a fish, whether it's a trout or a striper or a halibut or, fill in the blank, I think that is a much more secure connection to the fish, and I think you have a much better chance of getting a single J-style hook or an octopus-style hook deep inside the mouth of the fish. And like I say, once that gets purchased inside the fish's mouth, you've got a great chance of landing that fish, whether it's pan size or trophy size or whatever. J hooks like that, octopus hooks, once they embed, they hook and they hold, okay? Now with a treble, you could certainly get, deep inside the mouth hookups with a treble hook. But more often than not, just because of the sheer size, look at the diameter of that hook when you consider the whole, kind of circumference of the hook from point to point. It's just larger. It's larger. You have less chance of getting it deeply inside the fish's mouth. And just for that reason, hookups on a treble tend to be less secure than hookups on a single hook. No doubt about it. I've tested it. I've thought about it a lot, and I believe that to be true. However, I think you hook more fish, especially when fish aren't really nailing the bait. When they're flashing on the bait, when they're nipping at the bait, they're not engulfing the bait. I think you hook more fish with the treble. You got 3 hook points out there. It's kind of that shotgun mentality, You've got more hook points. You just have a higher probability of hooking a fish that's hitting lightly or that's just flashing on the back of a lure. And we get that a lot with trout and landlocked kings. When they're not fully committed, when the bite's a little off, maybe it's a full moon, maybe it's a pressure change, whatever that situation is, lots of days, trout just aren't freight training the lure, and I think you're going to get more hookups with the treble. Now, are you going to lose more of those fish? Probably so, but dropping stuff again. Yes, the answer is probably so. You're probably going to lose more fish on the treble than you will with the J hook. But, as I said, you're going to hook more fish, so you kind of got to figure that out on your own. And there are absolutely things that you can do to increase the amount of fish you land. Got to play the fish accordingly. You can play, I always say there's 2 ways to play trout and landlocked kings, or pretty much any fish for that matter. There's the way that you play them for maximum fun. You put a lot of pressure on them, keep that high rod tip. If they jump, that's groovy. You pull on them. If they run, that's fine. And you're not really that worried about losing them. You want to get maximum fight. Now, if you want to land a maximum amount of fish, you are much better off being gentle. Typically, if you fight fish gentle, they fight you gentle. Learned this up in Alaska. Those big giant halibut you see caught, if you start, twerking on them and trying to get all macho with them and pump them up to the surface, they'll fight you very hard. But I see little, 100 pound girls, teenage girls, land huge halibut. Captain Steve Smith's daughter, she's tiny. I doubt she's 5 feet tall. She's caught some tremendous halibut because she locks that rod and she keeps the line tight. She doesn't do anything crazy, and she just floats those big giant barn doors up to the surface, and they're in the boat, and then they're in the frying pans. So typically, if you fight a fish gentle, whether it's hooked on a J hook or a treble, you're going to land more of those fish. That's especially important if you're using a treble and you've got them lightly hooked because they didn't get it way back in their mouth. The other thing you want to do with trout and kings is watch your line, and you've seen me do this on the channel a bunch. If I think a fish is going to jump, I'll get that rod tip down. I won't aim it at the fish. I'll get the tip down. Kind of the reverse of holding it up high, and get the tip down. Still have the spring of the rod in play, but when you get that rod tip down, it keeps the fish under the surface of the water. The worst thing you can have happen with a lightly hooked fish, especially when using a spoon or something like that that can flop outside the mouth, is have that fish go airborne or have that fish thrashing on the surface. The water actually helps to cushion those head shakes. It helps to keep tension on the line. It helps to keep those hooks in place. When that fish goes airborne, or when he sticks his head out and starts thrashing behind the boat, your chances of losing that fish just go up a whole bunch. So those are a couple things you can do. Fight them gentle, keep the line tight, and keep the fish underneath the water. And that's going to help kind of mitigate the fact that you're going to probably lose more fish on treble hooks, but you're also find solace in the fact that you're going to hook more fish as well. So it's just kind of one of those things you've got to weigh out. And just remember, most lures, not all of them, but like this needlefish, it's a good example. It has a split ring on there. Some lures have welded rings, but it has a split ring. So if you're not confident in that J hook, by all means, change it out to a treble. And conversely, if you buy some of my speed spoons, my trigger spoons, and you want to switch them out to a J hook, hey, they come fitted with a split ring, by all means do that. And if you find yourself going to a place like Pyramid or something like that that requires a single barbless hook, by all means grab a pack of barbless hooks, swap them out, and when you go to a lake that allows barbed hooks, swap the barbed hooks back in. So that's kind of my perspective on hooks. Just to recap, I think J hooks and octopus hooks, I think they hook deeper, I think they hold better, but I don't think they hook as many fish when you're trolling as you can hook with a treble hook. And that is especially true, and it's especially important when the fish are short striking, when they're flashing on the bait, when they're not really on the bite fully, and they're not really committing and really getting that lure or fly or whatever you're using way back in their mouth. Anyway, your mileage may vary. Those are just my observations, but that is a question I get a lot. Guys ask me, why don't you put singles on your lures? Why do you use trebles? You know, why wouldn't you use trebles? All that kind of stuff. So that's just kind of my perspective on that. Anyhow, I'm signing off for now. I want to thank you guys for all the support. We are at 3.1 million views, almost 11,000 subscribers. If you're looking for trout gear, you know where to go. Go over to the Fish Hunt Shoot Productions website. You can see all my gear, my spoons, my soft plastics, my rods, my Signature Series rods, all that and more. We got some reels in there and some striper stuff too. Check that out. Always quality gear, stuff you see me using at a very fair price. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. The pandemic is ongoing, but I just heard the California governor on the TV. We are working through it. Things are looking positive, and we're going to be out on the water before you know it, guys. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I'm Kel Kellogg. I'm signing off. I will catch you next time right here on YouTube, and we'll be talking fishing. Thanks, guys.